everybody and welcome back. We are on week 13 of the wine challenge. Lucky 13 or unlucky 13? I'd like to think that it's going to be lucky, but we'll wait and see when we test the wine. This week we're going for an Italian Sangiovese. So here we have the Fico Grande. So this is from Emilia, Romagna in Italy. I think that's the place where it comes from anyway. So as with pretty much all of the reds that we've had, it's served at room temperature because it's got slightly more of a medium body to it. It is good to maybe open it maybe half an hour before you drink, just to smooth out any tannins or body in there. So the Sangiovese grape is commonly known as being quite a savoury grape, but it's really versatile. Depending on where it's grown and how it's grown and winemaking processes and so on. So it can kind of range from more kind of earthy flavours and being a bit more rustic, which is more along the lines of like a Chianti Classico, which some of you may well be familiar with. Apparently pairs very well with liver and fava beans. God, that was a terrible joke. All the way to slightly more rounded or more fruit-forward wines as well. So it's a bit of a grape variety which can vary considerably depending on how it's grown and where it's grown. As I've not tried it yet, I can't speak for the Fico Grande here, but I'm quite excited to see how this one falls on that spectrum. So let's start by giving it a go. So we're going to do our 5 S's as usual. So I've actually got a new set of glasses and they're huge. So I should be able to get a good swill in there because I didn't open my wine in advance because I keep forgetting to. So it'll mean I'll be able to aerate it as we swirl. So S number 1, we have C. Now it's a lovely ruby colour, you can see that from the get-go. So it's not particularly deep in colour. This is a larger glass though, so maybe because the wine is a bit more spread out, that's why it's a little bit more see-through, but I can definitely see my hand the whole way down the stem when I look through the top. So it's just a really nice kind of medium, lovely, rich, bold, bright ruby colour. So S number 2, we'll give it a little sniff. It's already kind of jumping out the glass a little bit, so it's not too difficult to smell straight away. I wouldn't say it's too pronounced in flavours, like I'm not getting loads of like individual flavours popping out at me, but it's more red fruit. Yeah, I think all I'm kind of getting is red fruit from that first sniff, the preliminary sniff. So I'll do S number 3. S number 3 is swirl. The great thing about having glasses this big is that I'm less likely to spill it while swirling. So I'm really going to aerate this because I didn't have my bottle open prior to this tasting. It's a really beautiful colour. So now that the wine is well and truly swirled, we'll go in for another sniff, sniff number 2. Oh, and already that's opened up quite a bit. So it's still definitely red fruits, but maybe it's almost got like a slight savoury, slightly herbal quality to it. The fruit is kind of like a slightly fleshier red fruit. It's not particularly like sharp red fruit, so I'm just going to give it another swirl and another sniff. Adding in 2 extra S's here. Yeah, subtly kind of spicy, herby kind of background noise to it, but predominantly that kind of red fruit. Trying to pinpoint a red fruit that it could be. I did say fleshier. I'm thinking more along the lines of like a red plum or a red cherry maybe. Something a little juicier rather than sharper than you get maybe with like raspberries and stuff. So I mean, that's all I'm getting from sort of looking at it, smelling it, swirling it around, trying to open it up. All that's left to do now is our favourite S number 5. Let's give it a sip. Cheers. Preliminary taste, coat in the mouth. It's got a bit of acidity to it, but it's not super heavy. I am getting a bit of fruit coming through, but I understand what they say when it's a savoury wine. It's not, there's no real sweetness to it, and a bit of tannin. So I'll sip it again, see if I can deduce a little bit more. Yeah, I'm definitely getting some tannin in there. It's got that slightly drying effect, but it's not harsh tannins. Bear in mind, I've not had my bottle open and I've kind of been aerating it by swirling it in the glass. If you've had it open a little while longer, you've allowed it to breathe, that should soften the tannins out even more. But even as it stands, it's not particularly strong or harsh tannins anyway. I'd definitely say it's continuing along the red fruits theme. If I was trying to pick out a fruit, again, I'd kind of stick along the lines of like a juicier red fruit. It's not bright red fruits, it's kind of deeper, warmer red fruits. So I'll definitely stick with kind of more of a red plum or a red cherry. As for kind of like the herbal side of things that I thought I could smell, I definitely still think that that's there in the palate as well. It does have that kind of slightly herbally savoury quality to it. I don't know if I'd call it a spice. I don't feel like I'd call it a spice, but it's definitely kind of an undertone there. So yeah, I mean, I think that's kind of summarising what I'm getting from it. It's got the fruit in there. I think it's definitely a slightly more fruit forward one, but it's got that savoury quality to it of a slightly herbal finish. It's got a decent amount of tannins in. It's got a bit of acidity to it as well. It's a very nice balanced wine. It's not super heavy, but it's got that kind of body to it to kind of bring all of those elements together in really quite a pleasant way. But let's have a little look, see if I'm right, see if I'm getting any of these things correct. For this particular wine, it says, an Italian red wine from Emilia Romagna with intense perfume and bright fruit flavours. I wouldn't say it had like an intense perfume to it. I would say that it definitely jumped out a little bit, but I wouldn't say it's the most pronounced on the nose that we've had so far. Aromas of fresh red fruit and a touch of spice precede a warm palate with smooth tannins. Fresh red fruit, I'd say yeah, red fruit. I'd say it's maybe slightly squishier, warmer, riper red fruit. Touch of spice, warm palate, smooth tannins. Yeah, I mean, that's a definite tick along the way. Spice, I would say it's not like a spicy, oaky, spicy wine. It's not like you're talking, you know, like cloves or pepper or anything like that. I'm not getting that from it. It also says crisp cherry flavours and subtle herbs. Yeah, I think that pretty much calls it in. So definitely the cherry flavours coming through. I was kind of getting a slightly plummy flavour too, like a more red plum flavour. And subtle herbs, yeah, there is a, it's just almost like an aftertaste of kind of like herbal herbs. It's just sort of like an aftertaste of herbs, like Italian mixed herbs. I think that pretty much sums it up quite well. I did also find an interesting little snippet from another website, just talking about Sangiovese in itself and, you know, how it can be like a bit of a range. But one thing that you do tend to get in all Sangiovese, no matter whether it's kind of the more earthy rustic side or the more fruit side, is you will kind of get slightly more of the cherry flavours, and it says subtle notes of tomato, which is quite interesting. So I'm going to give it another try and see if I can pick out any tomato in it. So I'm not sure if I'm getting tomato or not. I think the fruit and the kind of slightly more herbal flavour might be overpowering any kind of tomato flavour. I think when it comes to like the tomato element in it, maybe that kind of ties into the herbal flavours, because a lot of times, especially, you know, with Italian food, you get some really beautiful kind of tomato dishes with all sorts of herbs mixed into it, and they kind of tie in together quite well. But I don't know. Let me know if you can taste tomato. That'd be quite an interesting tasting note to see if anybody else can pick out. I'm not 100% sold that I can taste tomato in there. I'm definitely getting more fruits and herbs. Though, to be fair, tomato is a fruit. So yeah, I think that the description is relatively accurate. I'm not so sure about the tomato, but that was talking about Sangiovese as a whole. That's not necessarily the description of this particular bottle. So we're going to move along now to our food pairing. So it's all very orange this week. We have, I've done sort of a tomato-based pasta. When it comes to Sangiovese, the main thing that was recommended is anything kind of tomato-based, like Italian dishes preferably. So you'll get things like bolognese, marinara, you've got your meatballs, you've got your ragu. I've just cooked up some pasta with a little bit of tomato and herbs and a bit of garlic and whatnot. Just to try it with the wine and see how tomato-based dishes compare with the wine. And for the cheese this week, we have the J.J. Sandham's Red Crunch Truckle. This should have still relatively creamy, but quite a pronounced flavour to it. You do get a bit of nuttiness coming through this as well, which should hopefully work quite well with the wine. If you're going to have a different kind of cheese, you've always got the option of things like pecorino or hard cheeses. Something a little bit sort of tougher and saltier, should bring out the quite herbal quality in the wine, apparently. So I'm actually going to start with the pasta and then work my way onto the cheese. So I've got a mouthful of pasta. I've got my wine. Let's give it a go. Cheers. So that's quite interesting actually. Maybe because I've used quite a lot of herbs within the dish, because I'm getting a lot of the herbal flavours from here, it's almost cancelling out the herbal flavours from the wine a little bit. I can kind of really understand the pairing between the two there. You've got a lot of herbs coming through here, you've got a kind of herbaceous quality to the wine. They do match really well. I do think that the wine tastes almost more savoury with this dish, which I'm quite surprised at, because I thought maybe the acidity and the saltiness and the tomatoes might bring the fruit out a bit more, but I don't know, I'm getting slightly more herbal flavours. Correct me if I'm wrong, you know, by all means try it yourselves, you know, see if you've got anything, if you can whip up anything like this, if you have anything like this for your tea. Interesting. I'm going to give that another go. Yeah, I mean, I'm still getting a bit of that kind of fruitiness through, but definitely, I mean, it kind of pairs up the herbs quite nicely. The herbaceous quality of the wine and the herbs that I've used in creating this pasta sauce. I think I might have found a new favourite pairing for my little Italian dishes, you know, things like bolognese and meatballs and just simple sort of tomato pastas. It works really quite well, quite nicely. Because sometimes when I'm eating quite a savoury dish, I don't necessarily want a super fruity wine to sort of contrast it. I want something that's going to almost run smoothly alongside it, and it's going to continue the kind of flavour profile that I'm working on.